Hello, comic fans. Here's Earl Grey. The times around 500 were pretty interesting times here in Europe. They have inspired and excited the imagination of historians and storytellers alike ever since. Because it was the era of the barbarian invasion when the Roman Empire had to retreat and the different European tribes basically took over and reshuffled the cards once again. In a way that is pretty unclear up to this day, I guess. I'm no historian at all, but it left gaps open for speculation and storytelling and mythology, and especially the saga of King Arthur and all the knights involved is a big part within, and has left his mark in the comic world, not only here in Europe, but in America as well. Like, this is maybe the last proof here, the reprint of the Black Knight. Marvel boldness meets classic medieval tropes in terms of storytelling. I feel it's a bit more Marvel than real medieval times and lacks a bit the charm of the other comics that I want to show you. But these reprints, I think, are a neat idea to make this stuff here available once again. This book I've shown you in the my haul video here, Le Chevalier Ardent, Roland Ritter Ungestüm by François Krenhals. It's one of these comics that were heavily inspired here over here by Prince Valiant, as this stuff here, Hal Foster's masterwork, was highly influential not only here in Europe for many comic artists, but for many in America as well, and maybe especially in America, since this appeared in the Sunday papers in America first. So, and this is a luscious gift box edition here from Fantagraphics. Just too beautiful to be passed, and for me it was the last drop to get Prince Valiant in this edition, because, as I said it in the last video, for me Prince Valiant is actually the incarnation of old-fashioned and old people's taste in comics. When I was a child, all the guys who were much older than me, they raved around Prince Eisenherz, which is the German name, and there was nothing uncooler than his haircut, the Prince Eisenherz haircut, but even more the idea of nobility that is sort of the backbone of the Prince Valiant stories, the idea of noble kings and queens and even more noble princes, and that it's totally okay that they get the biggest piece of the cake constantly, and that they can kill their opponents with their singing sword and stuff like that. I mean, for me, there's really a line to much grim ramifications in the 20th century. And maybe the least important of these ramifications are just the yellow mags and the peculiar interest for some people for the love affairs of the royal families, at least here in Europe. I mean, there's stuff that I couldn't care less about. So you don't have to, or you just can take Prince Valiant as a adequate report of the medieval times or something like that. It's just the way the 19th century looked back at the medieval times here. I mean, the comic from Hal Foster is from 1937, started the series, but his first reference point, I feel, is the view of the 19th century, the romanticized view into these times. I'm not a fan neither of looking at the medieval times as the Dark Ages, where was no happiness at all. But of course, Prince Eisenherz is full of this naivety and yeah, which makes it pretty charming, to be honest with you, when you put all these ideas aside, that you read stuff about events that could have really happened back in the day. These are fairy tales, and you have to read them as fairy tales. So, and while I ramble along, you actually could see a lot of this beautiful art style. I hope these reproductions of fantagraphics. And no matter what page I can show you, this is just the way to go here, folks. It's an oversized reproducing the original Band-Aid dot coloring in all its splendid glory here. There's a German edition here. Of course, when you aren't able to read the stuff in English, you may have to get these books, but they're much smaller than this book here, I guess just European comic size, and even more important, they, for whatever reason, chose to recolor all the stuff. And it's, I looked it up in the comic shop to see the recoloring in person. And what I could see really shocked me, because the magic of this beautiful coloring, I mean, you can really, I don't know if this conveys here in the video, you really can see each and every detail, how the colors have been mixed by using these little dots, and it has this impressionistic feel about it. Look at these reflections here in the water. As you can see, I haven't put markers here in this book, because on each and every double page you can watch fantastic uses, not only of the coloring, of course, but Hal Forster's craft was just incredible and is incredible up to this day. As you can see here, the constant change of perspectives and the use of the grid, and when he breaks up the grid, it's usually for a good effect. Yeah, you just have to swallow that our Prince Eisenherz really looks like some actor of the 30s, or actually even the 20s in silent movies, where they overact a bit. And yeah, if you're allergic to kitsch, maybe not pick up Prince Valiant. Prince Valiant is, it's full of kitsch, and it's full of cliches and all that. But hey, it's the most beautiful kitsch you will see for a long time, I guess. If you want to have all of the Prince Valiant, you don't have to wait until end of the year. Comes the gift box number 4. I guess they're all available until 20-something. The series lasted incredibly long. And he started right from the start. He started very strong from the start here, Mr. Hal Foster. I love how these books are made, a bit like old books from not medieval books really, but from the 19th century. And I guess this book here is, as I said it again and again, rather more about the 19th century, and maybe, and filtered, of course, through the lenses of an American like Hal Foster in the 30s. So it's even more filtered through pink glasses. Here's our man, Hal Foster, with his wife, Harold Rudolph Foster. And there are always some interesting forewords that I really do read with some... yeah, they're really enjoyable, these introduction texts here. And as you can see, the grid is maybe a bit narrower, the panels are a bit smaller, but the storytelling is already there right from page 1. And it didn't took Harold Foster to get his typical voice. Just flipped some pages here and you can already see the big improvement. Just look at these panels here. Look at this picture here, a panel that they chose for good reasons for the cover here. And the stories read surprisingly well. You don't, at least I don't, read each and every caption box and text here. Because sometimes the storytelling through the pictures is so strong that you get what's happening without reading each of these caption boxes. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. What you can always do is to read the summary on each Sunday page here. There is a summary of the events before, so you be filled in what actually happened on the page before. But when I think about it, the longer I read Prince Valiant, the more of these caption boxes I actually read, and they have a special tone to them that transports you into this fairy tale universe of Prince Valiant. Even sometimes it's a bit hard to swallow all these stories of the fair maidens and this belief system that I think was shared by Hal Foster as well, of these noble knights which is really just not my way of viewing at things at all. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that these knights, just by the joy of fighting, ran into each other like this here. It's just far more accurate that the first line was forced by the people behind them to get into the battle, despite of their better knowledge. If you want to have just one Prince Valiant book and not a whole gift box, and just to try out Prince Valiant, it is maybe a good recommendation to read Volume 3 or pick up Volume 3, which is the start of his journey to get his future wife, Alita. And so this book here is a journey through the whole medieval world as Hal Foster's at least envisions it. And it's a lot of fun, and sees Hal Foster at the high point of the first high point in his craft. And when you want to have more of Prince Valiant afterwards, maybe you will pick up the second gift box with the volumes 4 to 6 from 1943 to 1948. So it was around the end of the Second World War. And this had some ramifications for the comics. For here in the fourth volume, with a fantastic panel used for the cover, we have the start of a strip that took a third of the Sunday pages from Prince Valiant, and it's actually another story taking place in the medieval times, maybe 1 century later or so, telling us about how it was when a castle was under siege, with lots of well-researched historic details, and it feels part-wise pretty accurate to what maybe actually was going on when a castle was under siege, with stuff that you don't read everywhere, at least in pulpy comic stories. How the who were the real winners and losers of this medieval warfare. So it feels a bit more accurate, actually. The reasoning behind it was, paper was a cherished good at the end of the World War, and so newspapers had to find new ways of printing the stuff, so maybe they could change out the bottom third of the page for some other strip, and to save paper, which eventually didn't happen at all. Bit of view into a torture chamber, and yeah, don't you think of Dan Klaus when you look at these two guys here? I do, actually. Like a lot of more recent, classic but more recent comic artists can come to your mind when you're flipping through these comics of Prince Valiant. And I have a sudden romantic notion to visit the Rhine again and look for all these castles that I visited in my childhood, when all this COVID stuff here will end, hopefully. And here's the volume that I'm now reading, so I'm just at the beginning of the journey, actually. This is an interesting character. This is Prince Valiant's future wife, Alita, and the Queen of the Misty Isles, and she seems to be a good match for him, and I really like this, again, this love kitsch on top of the old historian and historic and fairy tale kitsch. So this is just a cocktail of almost too much sugar for me, but hey, can you really complain when you look at stuff like this? I really don't. Just to finish my video here, a quick look at the third gift box set, which spans over 49 to 54. I have to look on the backs on the spines of the actual books here, because it isn't mentioned on the gift box here, which is a bit different than the gift boxes before. Maybe they will use this gift box in the future for the next books. I don't hope so, but maybe it is the case. I don't. Let's wait and see. So, yeah, a lot of beautiful books that are still waiting for me and for you, if you will want to go into the Prince Valiant universe. Thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.